Sometimes in media, we can become enamored by the unknown. Stories that are shown and not necessarily told that we have to work to put together for ourselves. This type of storytelling can be incredibly engaging because it is both mysterious and rewarding when we get to the answers before the big reveal. More recently, with the prevalence of indie titles and fan games, video games in general have started to branch out into this method of storytelling. Perhaps you are playing a seemingly innocent game that holds a dark secret, only for it to unravel slowly over your playthrough. Or perhaps even a character who puts on a sickeningly sweet facade only to turn your world upside down at the worst possible moment. In video games, some of us are fascinated by things like this, myself included, when things are much more unsettling than they initially seem. Welcome to Strange Gaming Stories. This is a series where I dive into the disturbing, hilarious, or just plain weird within the realm of video games. If this is your first stop for the series, welcome. And of course, be sure to click up above for more videos like this one. I think you'll find something else worth visiting after you complete this video. In today's episode, we're going to explore one of the most fascinating, confusing, and enthralling experiences I've ever had on YouTube. A story of a game that was not exactly what it seemed. A game that combined the detective-type mystery solving of an ARG into a 24-episode web series for the ages. Throughout a 2-year period of uploading, and even still today, this strange collection of videos sparks endless discussion of its purpose, origin, and story. Today, we will be discussing the infamous story of Petscop.
Alright, so this is just to prove to you that I'm not lying about this game that I found. I'm just gonna walk you through everything that I've seen so far, and obviously it'll be exactly as I described it because this is it.
On March 12, 2017, a video was uploaded to a YouTube channel entitled Petscop. At first glance, Petscop appeared to be an interesting and obscure game from the PS1 era being played on this channel for the very first time. Developed by an unknown company, Garalina, in 1997, the game played like a pretty bare-bones title where you have a brightly colored world and you're going around gathering pets, giving them a relatively safe place to stay in your possession. Your Let's Play navigator, Paul, leads us through the gift plane as he uncovers ways to catch these various pets for himself. After watching this particular segment in what was supposed to be the first section of the game, it becomes apparent that Petscop is not your average game. Like, what even is this as a main character? It's entirely too creepy. The game feels too difficult, too contrived. Like it wasn't originally intended to be a game, but merely an avenue for something more. Except, Paul quickly identifies there's more to Petscop than meets the eye, and that specific instructions he has written on a piece of paper can help to unlock a hidden world beneath the gift plane that hides some more than sinister secrets.
Down, right, start. Alright? So you can see that it accepted it and the music stopped. I'm just gonna go out this way here. So, it appears to be the same, except when I actually leave here, it'll be a little bit different. Alright.
By entering a specific controller input combination, Paul was transported to a dark and empty world known later as the Newmaker Plane. This was a place meant to be found by someone specific and houses an incredible array of secrets. Cryptic texts, unknown characters, they all litter this underground avenue, and Paul works to learn his place amongst all the twists and turns. As Paul continues through the Newmaker Plane, he uncovers a slew of mysteries. Some kid named Michael died prematurely. Someone named Marvin haunts the plane and even attempts to ask Paul for help, making the game appear almost sentient in nature. A girl named Care has been kidnapped, and some girl in a windmill disappeared a long time ago. All of this is meshed together with ominous underground landscapes and haunting music playing as Paul navigates this world. It makes everything feel so incredibly uneasy. Throughout the next several months, internet detectives came out of the woodwork in an attempt to solve Petscop's many secrets. Was this a real game? Was this some sort of an elaborate ARG that we're just left a breadcrumb trail of? With each episode's subsequent release, things only seemed to get more confusing. But of course, that didn't stop Redditors and YouTubers from compiling as much information as they could extrapolate from Petscop's various episodes. YouTubers like Pyrocynical and The Game Theorists created hour-long dissertations on Petscop episode analyses, and the Reddit team started creating a document chronicling theories and explanations for the web series Loose Ends. And yeah, it's got over 100 pages now. Petscop quickly gained popularity throughout the internet with its slow episode release and massive speculation. Something about it almost felt like a found footage type of series. Something that was more than meets the eye and convoluted enough to keep people guessing video after video. Just as theories were beginning to materialize, a new slew of videos would release that completely blew everything else out of the water. Although it became a common consensus that Petscop was fake, it didn't seem to reduce the hype of it at all. Never had a creepypasta been done so incredibly well before. Petscop had taken the world by storm, but even by the end of the web series, many were still left dumbfounded on what it was even supposed to be about. Over my initial impressions of Petscop several years ago, all the way up to my most recent revisit of the series, and the numerous theory videos floating around out there, I've formulated something I hope to be clear and concise. Which, if you've seen Petscop personally, you know is anything but what it normally offers. In the beginning of the series, we are introduced to the series' main protagonist, Paul. Paul's family received this copy of Petscop and appear to be using Paul's intelligence and gaming prowess to uncover the secrets that the game possesses. Paul becomes consumed by Petscop in the process, trying to figure out what his place in all this is, as the lines between his life and the life of Care, the girl who was kidnapped, start to blur. From what we can gather throughout Petscop's 24 episodes, Marvin's friend Lena Leskowitz disappeared sometime in 1977 when they were visiting a windmill. However, during the series, we learn Marvin may actually know more about this disappearance than he lets on about. Regardless of this fact, the disappearance of his friend sparked some sort of insanity in Marvin, leading him to track children down and kidnap them in an attempt to rebirth them into presumably Lena. He even goes as far as to kidnap his own daughter, Care, and leave her in the basement of his school for 5 months in an attempt to rebirth her as well. When she finally escapes and returns home for her birthday, she is not the same girl anymore. Hence the persona Care NLM, or Nobody Loves Me. And how exactly did Petscop become the vessel for uncovering these secrets? Well, that all points back to Michael, the boy who died when he was 8 years old. Michael's brother Rainer was close to Marvin and his family, and knows Marvin was involved with Mike's death in some sort of fashion. He's using Petscop as a way to communicate the information he has uncovered in hopes that someone will connect the dots. Rainer originally started this project for Marvin, and judging by the various clips uncovered by Paul later in the series, was also played by various other children throughout the years as well. Rainer, having been disturbed enough by his discoveries, gives Petscop to Paul's family and finally kills himself, completing a rather macabre form of poetry. Mike was a gift, and now Petscop becomes a gift to Paul's family. Although originally passed off to him as an interesting Let's Play Easter egg hunt, Paul's family eventually takes control of the Petscop YouTube channel and effectively forces him to play it religiously. His only avenue of escape is through the likes of Belle, another child Marvin attempted to rebirth but had failed in the past. How he knows Belle, I have no idea, but just bear with me here. Through Petscop, Paul shares his discoveries with her and eventually thwarts Marvin's rebirthing plans forever. As I mentioned earlier, the world lines between Paul and Kara's lives become a bit blurred at times. He says he does not know her, although multiple times throughout the game there are lines of dialogue shared by Kara that Paul believes he said himself. Is Kara actually Paul after she came back from being locked in the school basement? Are Kara and Paul related? Are they the same person in different parallel dimensions, simply using Petscop as a way to interact and communicate? Although no confirmed answer ever surfaced, I like the parallel universe theory the best. Although this plot synopsis is not complete, it does help to shape the overall themes that Petscop possesses. After the entirety of the web series was released, a man by the name of Tony Domenico announced via Twitter that he was in fact the creator of the project. Unfortunately for the many fans of Petscop, he didn't tie up all the loose ends, confirming some fears that the project had become bigger than the creator intended. Domenico confirmed that Petscop was not exactly a game, but the entirety of it ran from a petscop.exe file saved on his desktop. He had heavy inspiration from rebirthing projects, abuse cases, and one of his favorite film directors of all time, David Lynch. In a 2020 interview with the site EGM, he said, "Inland Empire is probably the largest single influence, that being a David Lynch film. You know, this whole thing of being trapped in a cursed film, you can make certain connections. In Inland Empire, it's kind of like a found footage shot movie with bits and pieces being pieced together of a girl that ends up taking on the role in real life of the character she portrays in a film. It's an underrated movie, but also helps explain a lot of the links he had from an inspiration perspective." One of the most important themes undoubtedly had to be associated with rebirthing. The Newmaker plane was named after Candace Newmaker, a young girl who famously died during a 70-minute attachment therapy session used to rebirth her and help her attach better to her adoptive mother.
You're not sure. I gave up. How about I gave up? See, this is your life.
Yes.
This is your life. Where are your eyes supposed to be?
Yes.
This is your life.
I don't want to do them, Neil.
Good. Say that again.
I don't want to do them, Neil.
I hate doing them.
I hate doing them.
Again.
I hate doing them.
Again.
I hate doing them.
Louder.
I hate doing them.
Again.
Unfortunately, due to the unnecessary intensity of this treatment, where Candace effectively was suffocated while she pleaded for her life, she passed away. During the fatal session, Candace was asked if she wanted to be reborn, in which she responded, eventually, no. This prompted the unlicensed doctor to shout, "Quitter! Quitter! Quitter!" Another nod from the quitter's room in Petscop. See, the rebirthing process will only work if the subject in question wants to be reborn, and in Candace and Belle's case, they did not. Domenico admitted later that the references that he made to this tragic incident were in bad taste. He said, "A decision like that, to reference a tragedy involving real people, should have had a lot of weight to it. It should have been something I treated very carefully." Domenico said, "I did not treat it carefully enough. But also, I feel that this series was just not the place for that kind of thing." Throughout parts of Petscop, Rayner also mentioned to Paul that he could close the loop, which effectively forces someone into a rebirth, suppressing their emotions. This is honestly a twisted take on the whole thing, and one that Paul ultimately ignored. Throughout the 24 episodes, Petscop touches on depression, family trauma, suicide, and more, but nothing that really jumps out at you in the slightest. This was another one of Domenico's goals in creating Petscop. In this and some of the other projects he's made over the years, he always wanted to convey a very subtle horror, a horror that had to be discovered, vice being thrown in your face. He felt that not many video games contain this type of horror, and ultimately it was something he yearned for and strived for within Petscop. Every October, I'm like, here's that mood again, and I kind of get excited about it. Then I remember that the majority is cheese or pure misery or torture or gore or all of the above. That is not my thing. The whole vibe repels me and makes me feel kind of sick. Domenico's method of creating horror is one of my personal favorites because you always feel like there's something more to uncover. The room for interpretation is endless. Every tiny facet, regardless of how small, helps add to the unnerving feeling I get when watching it. The music from the school is incredibly ominous and creepy, with the booming notes reminding you of how you probably shouldn't be there in the first place. The liminality of the new maker plane in its many rooms, the sentient addition of Marvin, Belle, and the Tool, the countless references to the Rebirthing Project, and the amazing narration by Paul. I mean, honestly, nothing about his voiceover ever really feels scripted. He went from curious to frustrated, then obsessed to courageous. It was an Oscar-worthy performance. Unfortunately, with as ambiguous as Petscop is, there are more loose ends than completed ones. Why did Rayner use a video game to do his detective work instead of going straight to the police? Did he create AI for Marvin and Belle, or are they really playing the game in kind of a multiplayer format? How does Paul know what buttons to press to speak to Marvin, or how to play the needles? Lastly, what are all the things that are censored? Is there any purpose to this other than to make us more curious? I mean, I guess we'll never know. The more you dig into it, the more confusing things get. But some of these plot holes work in Petscop's favor, because it adds to the realization that the elements within this universe become very matter-of-fact. It's like, oh, of course Paul was able to solve an extremely obscure puzzle by moving around a bucket or moving around on the map a specific way. It helps build the horror up even more. Perhaps the biggest mystery surrounding Petscop is why? Why would Domenico choose this as his avenue for storytelling, yet leave so many loose ends out there for people to pick apart? In many ways, this reminds me of that big influence he had in David Lynch. Many of his films weave a story in a very unorganized manner where the viewer must piece them together in order to get the bigger picture. In essence, the journey for arriving at the plot and purpose becomes more important than the plot itself. There are tons of random, speculative tidbits here and there that people get stuck on, but perhaps they really don't mean anything at all. And that, to me, is the biggest problem with Petscop. I think it would have either been better as a completed story or one whose author was never revealed. Tony Domenico's unmasking himself as the story's creator puts an unrewarding conclusion in motion. We may start to wonder why about specific unanswered questions, but with Petscop being over, there really isn't any incentive to continue pondering. It honestly kind of sucks. To add to this is the uncomfortable nature in which Domenico responds to Petscop's criticism. He's stated countless times that the viewer's endless sense of speculation and theorizing over his creation made him feel uneasy. Other than answering mostly basic questions about the web series, he hasn't really done anything or doesn't seem intent on closing the many loops Petscop contains. He has gone on record saying that he had more to talk about within the videos itself, but was not conclusive on whether he'd ever make any additional videos. And now, most recently, he has confirmed that his work on the series is complete. It truly does appear that the mysteries surrounding Petscop will never be solved, only to fade into the depths of obscurity over time. It's true though, even if Petscop's creator didn't feel the need to extend the story, that didn't stop the community from doing what they do best. In fact, shortly after Petscop was fully released, a fan project called Giftscop was created in the web series' wake that emulated the original wonderfully. Best yet, it allows the player to take an active role into Petscop's deepest mysteries. And to top it off, it is wonderfully done. I've seen a couple of videos on the game, but I haven't played it myself. It's truly a testament to the game's profound impact on the community. At the end of the day, I truly feel that Petscop is a masterpiece. Everything about its humble history, horror, and subtle storytelling make it stand out as a wonderful work of fiction. It's not really the story, it's just how it was presented. It certainly may not be for everyone, but man, what I wouldn't give to experience it for the first time all over again. If you haven't seen it yet, what are you waiting for? Have you had the chance to see Petscop or any of the theory videos surrounding it? If so, what are your thoughts on the series? Please leave your comments below. Petscop is some of the most fun I've had on YouTube. Perhaps one day Tony Domenico will release an updated synopsis to his confusing world, but I honestly find this to be unlikely. But if there's anything I've learned over my time on the internet, nothing is ever truly over, is it?